Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Brian Jones. Lewis Brian Hopkin Jones was an English musician, the founder, and the original leader of the Rolling Stones. Although he was originally the leader of what was supposed to be a blues-oriented band, Jones' fellow band members Mick Jagger and Keith Richards took over the band's musical direction, especially after they became a successful songwriting team. Jones developed a serious drug problem over the years and his role in the band steadily diminished. The band asked Jones to leave the Rolling Stones in June 1969, and guitarist Mick Taylor took his place in the group. Jones died less than a month later by drowning in the swimming pool at his home on Cotchford Farm in Hartfield, East Sussex. Original Rolling Stones bass guitarist Bill Wyman said of Jones, "He formed the band. He chose the members. He named the band. He chose the music we played. He got us gigs. He was very influential, very important, and then slowly lost it. Highly intelligent. And just kind of wasted it and blew it all away." Early life and paternity. Lewis Brian Hopkin Jones was born in the Park Nursing Home in Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, on the 28th of February 1942. An attack of croup at the age of 4 left him with asthma, which lasted for the rest of his life. His middle-class parents, Lewis Blount Jones and Louisa Beatrice Jones, were of Welsh descent. Brian had two sisters, Pamela, who was born on the 3rd of October 1943 and died on the 14th of October 1945 of leukemia, and Barbara, born on the 22nd of August 1946. Both Jonas' parents were interested in music. His mother Louisa was a piano teacher, and in addition to his job as an aeronautical engineer, Lewis Jones played piano and organ, and led the choir at the local church. In 1957, Jones first heard Cannonball Adderley's music, which inspired his interest in jazz. Jones persuaded his parents to buy him a saxophone, and 2 years later his parents gave him his first acoustic guitar as a 17th birthday present. Jones attended local schools, including Dean Close School, from September 1949 to July 1953, and Cheltenham Grammar School for Boys, which he entered in September 1953 after passing the 11+ exam. He enjoyed badminton and diving at school and attained first clarinet in the school orchestra. In 1957 he reportedly obtained 7 O-level passes, then he continued into the 6th form and obtained a further 2 O-levels. He also took 3 A-levels in physics, chemistry and biology, and passed in physics and chemistry, but failed in biology. Jones was able to perform well in exams despite a lack of academic effort. However, he found school regimented and disliked conforming. He disliked the school uniforms and angered teachers with his behavior, though he was popular with classmates. Jones himself said, "When I made the 6th form I found myself accepted by the older boys. Suddenly I was in." His hostility to authority figures resulted in his suspension from school on 2 occasions. According to Dick Hatchell, a childhood friend, he was a rebel without a cause. But when examinations came he was brilliant. In late summer 1959, Jones' 17-year-old girlfriend, a Cheltenham school girl named Valerie Corbett, became pregnant. Although Jones is said to have encouraged her to have an abortion, she carried the child to term and placed baby Barry David for adoption. Jones quit school in disgrace and left home, traveling for a summer through Northern Europe and Scandinavia. During this period, he lived a bohemian lifestyle, busking with his guitar on the streets for money, and living off the charity of others. Eventually, he ran short of money and returned to England. Jones listened to classical music as a child, but preferred blues, particularly Elmore James and Robert Johnson. He began performing at local blues and jazz clubs, while busking and working odd jobs. He reportedly stole small amounts of money from work to pay for cigarettes, for which he was fired. In November 1959, Jones went to the Wooden Bridge Hotel in Guildford to see a band perform. He met a young married woman named Angeline, and the two had a one-night stand that resulted in her pregnancy. Angeline and her husband decided to raise the baby, Belinda, born on the 4th of August 1960. Jones never knew about her birth. In 1961, Jones applied for a scholarship to Cheltenham Art College. He was initially accepted into the program, but 2 days later the offer was withdrawn after an unidentified acquaintance wrote to the college, calling Jones an irresponsible drifter. On the 23rd of October 1961, Jones' girlfriend Pat Andrews gave birth to his third child, Julian Mark Andrews. Jones sold his record collection to buy flowers for Pat and clothes for the newborn. He lived with them for a while. On the 23rd of July 1964, another woman, Linda Lawrence, gave birth to Jones' fourth child, Julian Brian. In early October 1964, an occasional girlfriend of Brian's, Dawn Malloy, announced to Brian and the band's management that she was pregnant by Brian. She received a check for £700 from Andrew Lou Goldham, Limited. In return, she signed an agreement that the matter was now closed, and she would make no statement about Brian Jones or the child to the public or the press. The undated statement was signed by Malloy and witnessed by Mick Jagger. In March 1965, Dawn gave birth to Brian's fifth child, Paul Malloy, renamed John Maynard by his adoptive parents, forming the Rolling Stones. Jones left Cheltenham and moved to London, where he became friends with fellow musicians Alexis Corner, Future, Manfred Mann singer Paul Jones, then named Paul Pond, Future Cream bassist Jack Bruce, and others who made up the small London rhythm and blues and jazz scene there. He became a blues musician, for a brief time calling himself Elmo Lewis and playing slide guitar. Jones also started a group with Paul Jones called the Roosters, and in January 1963, after both Brian and Paul left the group, Eric Clapton took over Brian's position as guitarist. Jones placed an advertisement in Jazz News on the 2nd of May 1962, inviting musicians to audition for a new R&B group at the Bricklayers Arms pub. Pianist Ian "Stu" Stewart was the first to respond. Later singer Mick Jagger also joined this band. Jagger and his childhood friend Keith Richards had met Jones when he and Paul Jones were playing Elmore James' Dust My Broom with Corner's band at the Ealing Jazz Club. Jagger brought guitarist Richards to rehearsals. Richards then joined the band. Jones and Stewart's acceptance of Richards and the Chuck Berry songs he wanted to play coincided with the departure of blues purists Jeff Bradford and Brian Knight, who had no tolerance for Chuck Berry. As Keith Richards tells it, Jones came up with the name the Rolling Stones while on the phone with a venue owner. The voice on the other end of the line obviously said, "What you called panic." The Best of Muddy Waters album was lying on the floor, and track 5, side 1 was Rolling Stone Blues. The Rolling Stones played their first gig on the 12th of July 1962 in the Marquee Club in London, with Jagger, Richards, Jones, Stewart, bass player Mick Taylor and drummer Tony Chapman. From September 1962 to September 1963, Jones, Jagger and Richards shared a flat at 102 Edith Grove, Chelsea, with James Felsh. a future photographer whose name was used in some of the group's early Nankerfeld writing credits. Jones and Richards spent day after day playing guitar while listening to blues records. During this time, Jones also taught Jagger how to play harmonica. The four Rolling Stones went searching for a bassist and drummer, finally settling on Bill Wyman on bass, because he had a spare Vox AC30 guitar amplifier, and always had cigarettes, as well as a bass guitar that he had built himself. After playing with Mick Avery, Tony Chapman and Carlo Little in January 1963, they finally persuaded jazz-influenced Charlie Watts to join them. At the time, Watts was considered by fellow musicians to be one of the better drummers in London. He had played with Alexis Korner's group Blues Incorporated. Watts described Jonas' role in these early days. Brian was very instrumental in pushing the band. At the beginning, Keith and I would look at him and say he was balmy. It was a crusade to him to get us on the stage in a club and be paid half a crown, and to be billed as an R&B band, while acting as the band's business manager. Jones received £5 more than the other members, which did not sit well with the rest of the band, and created resentment. Keith Richards has said that both he and Jagger were surprised to learn that Jones considered himself the leader, and was receiving the extra £5, especially as other people, like Giorgio Gomelski, appeared to be doing the booking. Musical contributions. Examples of Jonas' contributions are his slide guitar on I Wanna Be Your Man, I'm a King Bee, Little Red Rooster, I Can't Be Satisfied, I'm Movin' On, Don'ka Bother Me, and No Expectations. Jones can also be heard playing Bo Diddley-style rhythm guitar on I Need You Baby, and on Please Go Home. The guitar riff in The Last Time, sitar on Street Fighting Man, Paint It Black, organ on Let's Spend the Night Together, marimba on Under My Thumb, Out of Time and Yesterday's Papers, recorder on Ruby Tuesday and All Sold Out, saxophone on Child of the Moon and Citadel, Appalachian dulcimer on I Am Waiting, and Lady Jane, Mellotron on SHE's A Rainbow, We Love You, Stray Cat Blues, 2000 Light Years From Home, and Citadel, and the auto harp on Ride On Baby, and on You Got the Silver. Jones also played harmonica on many of the Rolling Stones' early songs. Examples of Jonas playing are on Come On, Stoned, Not Fade Away, I Just Want to Make Love to You, Now I've Got a Witness, Good Times, Bad Times, 2120 South Michigan Avenue, The Under Assistant West Coast Promotion Man, One More Try, High and Dry and Goin' Home, Who's Driving Your Plane, Cool Calm and Collected, Who's Been Sleeping Here, and Dear Doctor and Prodigal Son. In the early years, Jones often served as a backing vocalist. Notable examples are Come On, I Wanna Be Your Man, I Just Wanna Make Love to You, Walking the Dog, Money, I'm Alright, You Better Move On, and It's All Over Now. He contributed backing vocals as late as 1968 on Sympathy for the Devil. He is also responsible for the whistling on Walking the Dog. Richards maintains that what he calls guitar weaving emerged from this period. From listening to Jimmy Reed albums, we listened to the teamwork, trying to work out what was going on in those records, how you could play together with two guitars and make it sound like 4 or 5. Jonas and Richards' guitars became a signature of the sound of the Rolling Stones, with both guitarists playing rhythm and lead without clear boundaries between the two roles. His aptitude for playing a wide variety of instruments is particularly evident on the album's Aftermath between the Buttons and their Satanic Majesty's request. Estrangement from bandmates. Mick Jagger, Marianne Faithfull, Al Vandenberg, Jones, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Andrew Luger Oldham's arrival as manager marked the beginning of Jonas' slow estrangement. Oldham recognized the financial advantages of band members writing their own songs, as exemplified by Lennon-McCartney, and that playing covers would not sustain a band in the limelight for long. Further, Oldham wanted to make Jagger's charisma and flamboyance a focus of live performances. Jones saw his influence over the Stones' direction slide as their repertoire comprised fewer of the blues covers than he preferred. More Jagger, Richards originals developed, and Oldham increased his own managerial control, displacing Jones from yet another role. According to Oldham in his book Stoned, Jones was an outsider from the beginning. When the first tours were arranged in 1963, he traveled separately from the band, stayed at different hotels, and demanded extra pay. According to Oldham, Jones was very emotional and felt alienated because he was not a prolific songwriter, and his management role had been taken away. He resisted the symbiosis demanded by the group lifestyle, and so life was becoming more desperate for him day by day. None of us were looking forward to Brian totally cracking up. The toll from days on the road, the money and fame, and the feeling of being alienated from the group resulted in Jonas' overindulgence in alcohol and other drugs. These excesses had a debilitative effect on his physical and mental health and, according to Oldham, Jones became unfriendly and antisocial at times. Jones was arrested for drug possession on the 10th of May 1967, shortly after the Redlands incident at Richard's Sussex home. Authorities found marijuana, cocaine, and methamphetamine in his flat. He confessed to marijuana use, but claimed he did not use hard drugs. In June 1967, Jones attended the Monterey Pop Festival. There he met Frank Zappa and Dennis Hopper, and went on stage to introduce the Jimi Hendrix Experience, who were not yet well known in the United States. Hostility grew between Jones, Jagger, and Richards, alienating Jones further from the group. Although many noted that Jones could be friendly and outgoing, Wyman, Richards, and Watts have commented that he could also be cruel and difficult. By most accounts, Jonas' attitude changed frequently. He was 1 minute caring and generous, the next making an effort to anger everyone. As Wyman observed in Stone Alone, there were at least two sides to Brian's personality. One, Brian was introverted, shy, sensitive, deep-thinking. The other was a preening peacock, gregarious, artistic. Desperately needing assurance from his peers, he pushed every friendship to the limit and way beyond. In March 1967, Anita Pallenberg, Jonas' girlfriend of 2 years, left him for Richards when Jones was hospitalized during a trip the three made to Morocco, further damaging the already strained relations between Jones and Richards. As tensions and Jonas' substance abuse increased, his musical contributions became sporadic. He became bored with the guitar and sought exotic instruments to play, and he was increasingly absent from recording sessions. In Peter Whitehead's promotional film, For We Love You, made in July 1967, he appears extremely groggy and disoriented. Jonas' last substantial sessions with the Stones occurred in spring and summer of 1968. When the Stones produced Jumpin', Jack Flash and the Beggars Banquet album. He can be seen in the Jean-Luc Godard film 1+1 playing acoustic guitar and chatting and sharing cigarettes with Richards, although Jones is neglected in the music making. The film chronicles the making of Sympathy for the Devil, where once Jones played multiple instruments on many tracks, he now played only minor roles on a few pieces. Jonas' last formal appearance was in the December 1968 The Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, a part concert, part circus act film organized by the band. It went unreleased for 25 years, because Jagger was unhappy with the band's performance compared to others in the film such as Jethro Tull, John Lennon, The Who, and Taj Mahal. Commentary included as bonus material indicated that almost everyone at the concert sensed that the end of Jonas' time with the Rolling Stones was near, and Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend of The Who thought it would be Jonas' last live musical performance. Departure from the band. Jones was arrested a second time on the 21st of May 1968, for possession of cannabis, which Jones said had been left by previous tenants of the flat. Due to his being on probation, he was facing a long jail sentence if found guilty. The jury found him guilty, but the judge had sympathy for Jones. Instead of jailing him, he fined him £50 plus £105 in costs, and told him, "For goodness sake, don't get into trouble again or it really will be serious." Jonas' legal troubles, estrangement from his bandmates, substance abuse, and mood swings became too much of an obstacle to his active participation in the band. The Rolling Stones wanted to tour the United States in 1969 for the first time in 3 years. But Jones was not in fit condition to tour, and his second arrest exacerbated problems with acquiring a U.S. work visa. In addition, Jones' attendance at rehearsals and recording sessions had become erratic, and when he did appear he either rarely contributed anything musically or, when he did, his bandmates would switch off his amplifier, leaving Richards to play nearly all the guitars. According to author Gary Herman, Jones was literally incapable of making music. When he tried to play harmonica, his mouth started bleeding. This behavior was problematic during the Beggars Banquet sessions and had worsened by the time the band commenced recording Let It Bleed. In March 1969, Jones borrowed the group's Jagger and went shopping in Pimlico Road. After the parked car was towed away by police, Jones hired a chauffeur-driven car to get home. In May 1969, Jones crashed his motorcycle into a shop window and was secretly taken to hospital under an assumed name. From this point, Jones was still attending recording sessions, but was no longer a major contributor to the band's music. By May, he had made 2 contributions to the work in progress: auto harp on You Got the Silver, and percussion on Midnight Rambler. Jagger informed Jones that he would be fired from the band if he did not turn up to a photo session. Looking frail, he nonetheless showed up, and his last photo session as a Rolling Stone took place on the 21st of May 1969, first at St. Catherine Docks, Tower Bridge, London, and then at Ethan Russell's photographic studio in South Kensington. The photos would appear on the album Through the Past Darkly in September 1969. The Stones decided that following the release of the Let It Bleed album they would start a North American tour in November 1969. However, the Stones' management was informed that, because of his drug convictions, Jones would not receive a work permit. At the suggestion of pianist and road manager Ian Stewart, the Stones decided to add a new guitarist, and, on the 8th of June 1969, Jones was visited by Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Charlie Watts, and was told that the group he had formed would continue without him. To the public it appeared as if Jones had left voluntarily. The other band members told him that although he was being asked to leave, it was his choice how to break it to the public. Jones released a statement on the 9th of June 1969, announcing his departure. In this statement he said, among other things, that, "I no longer see eye to eye with the others over the discs we are cutting." Jones was replaced by 20-year-old guitarist Mick Taylor. During the period of his decreasing involvement in the band, Jones was living at Cotchford Farm in East Sussex, the residence formerly owned by Winnie the Pooh author A.A. Milne, which Jones had purchased in November 1968. Alexis Corner, who visited in late June, noted that Jones seemed happier than he had ever been. Jones is known to have contacted Corner, Ian Stewart, John Lennon, Mitch Mitchell, and Jimmy Miller about intentions to put together another band. Jones had apparently demoed a few of his own songs in the weeks before his death, including "Has Anybody Seen My Baby?" and "Chow Time." Equipment. John's main guitar in the early years was a Harmony Stratotone, which he replaced with a Gretsch Double Anniversary in two-tone green. In 1964 and 1965, he often used a teardrop-shaped prototype Vox Mark III. From late 1965 until his death, Jones used Gibson models, as well as two Rickenbacker 12th-string models. He can also be seen playing a Fender Telecaster in the 1968 Jumpin' Jack Flash promo video. Death. At around midnight on the night of 2–3 July 1969, Jones was discovered motionless at the bottom of his swimming pool at Cotchford Farm. His Swedish girlfriend, Anna Wolin, was convinced Jones was alive when he was taken out of the pool, insisting he still had a pulse. However, by the time the doctors arrived it was too late and he was pronounced dead. The coroner's report stated, "Death by misadventure," and noted his liver and heart were heavily enlarged by drug and alcohol abuse. Upon John's death, The Who's Pete Townshend wrote a poem titled, "A Normal Day for Brian, a Man Who Died Every Day." Jimi Hendrix dedicated a song to him on U.S. television, and Jim Morrison of The Doors published a poem titled, "Ode to L.A." while thinking of Brian Jones, deceased. Coincidentally, Hendrix and Morrison both died within the following 2 years, all three at age 27. Jones, Hendrix, and Morrison are considered the 10th, 13th, and 16th members of the 27 Club, respectively. The Rolling Stones performed at a free concert in Hyde Park on the 5th of July 1969, 2 days after John's death. The concert had been scheduled weeks earlier as an opportunity to present the Stones' new guitarist, Mick Taylor, and the band decided to dedicate the concert to Jones. Before the Rolling Stones set, Jagger read excerpts from Adonais, a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley about the death of his friend John Keats, and stagehands released hundreds of white butterflies as part of the tribute. The band opened with a Johnny Winter song that was one of John's favorites, "I'm Yours and I'm Hers." Jones was reportedly buried deep in Cheltenham Cemetery. His body was embalmed, hair bleached white, and was placed in an airtight metal casket. Watts and Wyman were the only Rolling Stones who attended the funeral. Mick Jagger and Marianne Faithfull were traveling to Australia to begin the filming of Ned Kelly. They stated that their contracts did not allow them to delay the trip to attend the funeral. When asked if he felt guilty about John's death, Mick Jagger told Rolling Stone in 1995, "No, I don't really. I do feel that I behaved in a very childish way, but we were very young, and in some ways we picked on him. But, unfortunately, he made himself a target for it. He was very, very jealous, very difficult, very manipulative. And if you do that in this kind of a group of people, you get back as good as you give. To be honest, I wasn't understanding enough about his drug addiction. No one seemed to know much about drug addiction. Things like LSD were all new. No one knew the harm. People thought cocaine was good for you. Murder claims. Theories surrounding John's death developed soon afterwards, with associates of the Stones claiming to have information that he was murdered. According to rock biographer Philip Norman, the murder theory would bubble back to the surface every 5 years or so. In 1993 it was reported that Jones was murdered by Frank Thorogood, who was doing some construction work on the property. He was the last person to see Jones alive. Thorogood allegedly confessed the murder to the Rolling Stones driver, Tom Keelock, who later denied this. The Thorogood theory was dramatized in the 2005 movie Stoned. In August 2009, Sussex police decided to review John's death for the first time since 1969. After new evidence was handed to them by Scott Jones, an investigative journalist in the UK. Scott Jones had traced many of the people who were at Brian Jones' house the night he died, plus unseen police files held at the National Archives. According to Trevor Hobley, chairman of the Brian Jones fan club, a neighbor saw a large bonfire on Jones' estate in which documentation was being burned on the morning of Jones' death as he was leaving for work at 7 a.m. In the Mail on Sunday in November 2008. Scott Jones said Frank Thorogood killed Brian Jones in a fight, and senior police officers covered up the true cause of death. Following the review, the Sussex police stated that they would not be reopening the case. They asserted that this has been thoroughly reviewed by Sussex Police's Crime Policy and Review Branch, but there is no new evidence to suggest that the coroner's original verdict of death by misadventure was incorrect. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.